Welcome back from your challenge. You were supposed to have gone ahead and created your start screen, your end screen, and figured out your build flow. You didn't have to make buttons, just putting it all in there and getting it all set up. But just in case you need a little bit of a refresher on TextMesh Pro and how to get buttons set up, I'm here to give you that. I've gone ahead and waited until now to go through the steps so you can see it all as it happens. I've made myself a start screen. Right now I can see the skybox through it. I've gone ahead and made myself a canvas with some TextMesh Pro text on it. I'm going to rename this text to title text. Remember, we want to be as descriptive as possible. So title text tells me exactly what that is. And then I'm going to have to go to Window, TextMesh Pro, and Font Asset Creator. Now the reason we have to do this first is because otherwise we will not be able to use our text. We have to actually create it first. So I need my Maze Doodle right here. Maze Doodle is the font that I've found on dafont.com that I'd like to use. I've already dragged my font into my game, so I have it ready and in my assets folder. If I click on this, I'm not going to change any of these. You click on Generate Font Atlas and then Save. And I'm going to save it just to the same folder that it's already in and just call it regular SDF because SDF designates it as the TextMesh Pro file. So I can tell that it is what it is. I can close out of the Font Asset Creator now. And I can now use my SDF right here. I'm going to place mine towards the top. And remember, we can change everything about this text right here. So if you want to change the font size, I'm going to make my bounding box a little bit bigger because I just know it's going to, I want it nice and big. It's my title text, you know. Let's center it, which is right here. And I can't really read it because I've got my background still visible right through here. And I know I'm not going to want that anyway, so for right now, I'm going to create myself on my canvas. I'm just going to do a panel. And then I'm going to make it, let's see, what kind of theme? I have a pastel thing going on. Do I want a panel? Do I not want a panel? It's hard to tell. Yeah, I think I want a panel. So that fills in my whole canvas, and right now my title text is behind that, you see. So I need to put that on top so that it's visible, and now I can actually read Maze Run, which is nice. So Maze Run, my title text, I probably need to center this better on my screen. And in fact, the easiest way to center something without having to finick with it is to make it the same width as what you're dealing with. And in an ideal world, you will do this in a way where you don't shift it back and forth a bunch of times. So I guess you get to have fun watching me struggle for a second. And it is centered according to its self over here. So Maze Run. Nice and big. I want to make it bold. No, I don't like it bold. Italicized? That's kind of fun. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. No underline? Alright. Now, the other part of this that I told you needed to do was go ahead and make some buttons. So I'm going to use my TextMesh Pro text as my buttons, and I'm going to add that as an element because that was something I told you you'd be able to do, and I'd wanted to go over it a little bit. So start button. Let's change the text font to this. Change it to start. Let's center it. And it's already naturally centered on the screen, so I'm just going to leave it there. I don't necessarily need to fiddle with the box or anything. And on my start button here, I'm going to collapse my TextMesh Pro information, add a component, button, which you can see is still up on my screen from before, and I'm going to just leave this script here empty. because we haven't set up any of that information yet. But I do know that I'm going to need a exit button. So let's go ahead and take this start button. I'm going to duplicate it. Change this to quit button. Drag her right on down here. And obviously we don't want the text to say start because that would be deeply confusing. Quit. And there we have it. So now we have a start screen for our game. And if you want to fancy it up, you can. So let's say I want to make another, let's see, let's do, let's do an image. And let's make it fill my sides here. I'm just going to eyeball it for now. Right now it's on top of everything, which is not great. I'm going to make it partially transparent, and I'm going to make it, I don't know, it's kind of not really pastel in my scheme here. I can tweak with the colors. Something like that. It's maybe a little bit intense for my theme, but you get the idea. So I'm going to call this transparent. No, let's see. I'm going to call it Deco Square, short for Decoration Square. And I'm going to child it to my panel. No, actually, that made my opacity go away because it automatically went back to the, well, okay. I kind of like how it looks. Anyway, regardless. That's just something to kind of add a little pizzazz to my screen. And obviously these buttons are quite little right now, and I should probably go back in and figure that out, but it's alright. So right now, the next step is, once we've made our start screen, the easiest shortcut is to copy our start scene and make a quit screen, an end screen. So let's go ahead and, in our scenes, we'll click start screen and then duplicate it. And let's go ahead and save this scene where we currently are. Everything looks good for here. And load up start screen 1. First things first, we want to rename start screen 1, correct? So let's call this we'll call this win screen, and we'll probably also have a lose screen. So if we open our win screen, it didn't save any of our stuff. Interesting. So let's come over to our start screen. Remember, we can always copy from one, go to the next, and paste. Hey, everything's there. So I'm going to leave my title text, and I'm going to put on this win screen, let's change this to replay button. And we'll leave that one quit, so we need to change our text to replay. Do I have question marks with this font? Nope, that looks terrible. Alright, so replay and quit. And again, we're not hooking up any buttons. Let's go ahead and save this screen. And let's make a lose screen while we're at it. Lose screen. Let's rename this. Lose screen. Tried something different there just to see if it would work. Let's load start screen, lose screen. Alright. So right now it just has the title. We probably want to go back and add in some flavor text like, hooray, you won, and Boo, you lost. But basically, you've got it all figured out now. So we'll move on from this and remember how to set up buttons and do our script for that. Now, before, for a long time, we've been re-importing the same text or same scripts so that we could rehook up everything in the exact same way. But I'm going to go back over rewriting that so we can kind of brush up on some of the code and get used to it again. So that's what we're doing next. First things first, whenever we are making our scene loader script, we need to go ahead and in our scripts folder, go ahead and create a C# script. And we'll call it scene loader. And I'm going to, I already had made it a item, but I'm going to make an empty right here. And I'm going to also call it scene loader. I like for the names of these to match each other, and I'm going to reset the transform so that it's at 0, 0, because it's just good practice. And I'm going to go ahead and drag my script onto the scene loader. So it's already hooked up and already attached, and if I double click my scene loader, it will open with Visual Studio. And we've got our plain script, so just a reminder of everything about the script. We've got our namespaces right here. We've got the class name, which is the name of our script. Remember, never ever change this, because if this does not match what is over here, it will break everything and be no good. And our start, it's got a handy dandy little note above it that says it's called the first frame. Update, so basically as soon as the game you hit the play button, it runs whatever's in void start. And then update is called once per frame, so whatever you put in update happens every single time a frame happens. So void update is to be used with, knowledge and caution, because if you put something in there that it has to do a lot of thinking every single frame, it'd be a great way to break your computer temporarily. So, for our script, I'm actually going to reference the original one, but we're going to go back and talk about it a little bit more. So this is just one of the GitHubs that I had posted before for you last year. It has all of the code on it still. It's all still there. So if you want to go back and look at any of that stuff, you can. But this is what we have from there. You'll notice a couple of differences between our code that we have currently, our blank one, and what we had in here. So first of all, you might notice this extra line, using Unity Engine.scene management. Remember, Unity Engine itself, you have to specify that you need the scene management part of it, because otherwise it does not know how to do things like load scene, get active scene. These are things that are specific to the scene management namespace. So we have to put that back into our namespaces. So let's go ahead and pop that one on there. And remember, namespaces are kind of like dictionaries. Like whenever we write anything, we want to be able to have access to the correct dictionary. So scene management, semicolon. Okay, it's gray right now because it's not currently in use. It says using directive is unnecessary when I hover over it because we haven't put anything in here. So in here there is 3 methods, which remember are pieces of code that are run in chunks. And depending on where you place them, they just run in order and whatever you tell them to do inside. So we have 3 methods here. Each one is a public method, which we need to be a public method because we are going to need to reference these for our buttons to be functional. So we are going to have a public void. Remember, void is it's an input term, but basically for right now, most of our stuff has been a void. Nothing is going input. The name of the method, and then parentheses, and then we have our curly brackets enclosing our method. So this method is just load next scene, and then it's integer current scene index, which remember this right here, this chunk, is declaring that there is a variable of type integer, and we are naming it current scene index. And after we've done that, now we're saying, all right, set that equal to this line, which says scene manager.getActiveScene, which is a method that finds whatever scene we're currently in, and then find the build index number of it. And then once we had that, we'll go to Scene Manager, load scene, current scene index, which the previous line calculated, plus 1. And real quick, we know that's not going to work right now, or at least we should know, because we don't have a build index set up yet. And I may have already set up mine just a little bit, but remember you need to, if yours is, you'll open your file and then build settings, and then you'll need to drag your scenes into here and organize them so that they're in a logical order. In my case, start screen, level 1, win screen, and lose screen in that order. Later on, whenever we have multiple levels, we'll be glad that we wrote that scene script so flexibly, because it will just add 1 to the number of the level. So that's what that means. And yeah, I'm just going to copy this wholesale, but I'd like you to go ahead and physically type it out. I know it's tempting to just go hunt down the Google classroom information and try and find it, but I promise you writing it physically out will help you remember all the different little pieces. Also, you get the IntelliSense, it'll, partially finish itself. So, this will find our current scene, the build index number, then we'll load a scene of our build index number plus 1, which means the next scene. The next method has public void play again, which is the button that we'll be having on our win screen and our lose screen. It's scene manager, load scene 0. We didn't write it flexibly at all because we wanted it to be able to just go straight back to the very first screen. And the first screen, remember, whenever we're counting with code, it generally starts at 0 and then moves up from there. It also has find object of type _ level manager reset game. Now, the reason we had this is because this is from one of our games in which we were keeping score, and if we had not reset the game, then the score would just continue to add upon itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this code, and I'm going to comment out this section, because we'll probably want to do some kind of scorekeeping or some kind of tallying of progress, but for right now, this will do nothing other than throw an error, so I'm going to put 2 forward slashes in front of it to comment it out, which should be, again, familiar to you. And then our last one is the quit game. Public void quit game, and then in curly brackets, just application.quit. You know from experience that doesn't really do anything within the Unity editor because it can't quit anything, but were you to download an application and run it on your computer, if you hit application quit, it would automatically close out. So that's what that looks like, and you'll see my scene management has activated because it's being used down here with load scene and get active scene. So yeah, let's save this and pop on over to our editor and close out of our build settings and see what we have here. So we have our scene loader, which has our scene loader script, and we need to add some things to our button. So let's prefab our scene loader, because we know we're going to be using that, and now I have a blue block next to that. And on our start button, in the button script, we need to be able to use those methods that we've created. So if I grab from my prefab and drop it right there, now I can go to my no functions, and it now has a scene loader. So I'll show you in a second what it looks like without it, but it should say scene loader right here. Remember, you have to have it attached to the game object. It cannot just be the script, and you want to prefab it because you want it to draw from the same place every time. And it's our start button, so we want it to load next scene for our start button. Our quit button doesn't have anything on it yet, so if we hit the plus sign and there's nothing here, there's no way to click any of that. So again, just grabbing our scene loader, dragging it over, setting it to application quit game, so quit, and we'll save that start screen. So now these buttons should technically be functional. So let's go ahead and double check and see if our method for our button is working. So if I click on start, now I'm inside my game and I can't do anything else because I haven't finished setting up my scene flow yet, but you get the picture. So from your game view, your level 1 game view, you probably want to set some buttons, at least for now, so that you have some scene flow that you can double check. So I want you to go ahead and finish out adding your script, writing it all out, attaching your buttons to it. Give yourself buttons on your level 1, up on which I recommend you put it on the canvas. And if you add a canvas and you're like really zoomed in, so say you're right here and you see the edges of the canvas but you can't see anything else, if you click on canvas and then you put your mouse over the scene view and hit F, it will center over that thing on your screen. So now I could add on my canvas, say I want an actual button this time. We'll do a TextMesh Pro button. I can add it right here to the bottom right. And now, were I to look at the game view, there's a button in the bottom right. Even though on this, it technically looks like it's not on there, it's because this is our overlay, and the game view itself is based on the camera. So these two things are separate from each other. Anyway, getting distracted again. So, go ahead and add your scene flow so that you can go from start screen to your level 1, and then to your win screen. Hook up your lose screen even though you're not technically going to get there just yet. It's just there for next time. And then make sure you can go from your win screen back to your start screen. So accomplish all that and you'll be ready to move on to moving your character.